Welcome back to the Warrior Servant Leader podcast, man. We are so glad to have you joining us again today to hear an inspiring conversation. Today's guest is Dr. Kevin Smith. He's a chiropractor from the great state of Pennsylvania and home of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had to say that because my wife's from Pittsburgh, and if she listens to this, I can get some credit, extra points.
Good graces.
Yeah, get some extra points. Dr. Smith is the founder and clinic director of the Chronic Condition Center in Pittsburgh, where he helps people move and feel better by combining chiropractic and science-based nutrition. He's been in practice since 2001, and in that time, he has seen thousands of people regain their function, restore their health, overcome imbalances, preserve their independence, and decrease their reliance on medication. He's able to distill down complicated medical information and communicate it in a way that the average person, even off the street, can understand it. And most importantly, I think, which we don't always see in doctors these days, he practices the art of active listening and tailors treatment specifically to people's needs. He takes the time to educate them about their condition and their treatment plans. One of his foremost concerns is in developing a trusting long-term relationship and genuinely caring about the people's well-being. Dr. Smith, welcome to the Warrior Servant Leader podcast.
Thank you, Pat. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Man, we're going to have some fun because most people get glazed over a little bit in the eyes when I say, we got a doctor on, we're going to talk about medicine. And they're like, oh, man, I don't know. But we're going to start off really in a unique direction. How did you go from a bachelor's in music to a functioning neurology-trained chiropractor who specializes in peripheral neuropathy and chronic conditions? What is the story behind that?
Well, when I started off life, I started off with an interest in music, and I've been playing music since 1973. And I know I'm dating myself now, but when I finished music school, I took a look around, and I didn't like what I saw. And most of the people that taught in the music school, these are world class musicians that could play circles around me. None of them played music for a living. None of them. They taught at the university. That's their primary means of income.
Yeah.
And all the people were married to a person that had a straight job, working 40 hours a week. And if they didn't have that going for them, they'd be homeless, living out of a dumpster. Yeah. And so my fiance at the time was a registered nurse. She's been my wife for about 32 years now. And her being a nurse, it kind of inspired me to go into health-related care. And so as you would imagine, a music major doesn't take classes like anatomy and physiology, biology, chemistry, physics, biochemistry, all that stuff. And so I had to basically start from square one, literally after graduating from college. I had to go back to school literally as a freshman from square one because the paths were divergent.
Yeah.
They weren't at all related. But I did that, and I did very well. And I found out that I actually had a hidden talent. And I all those big boy classes that I was avoiding all my life.
Yeah.
I actually did pretty well in them. And I went to the Palmer College of Chiropractic in Davenport, Iowa for 4 years. And then my wife and my new daughter at the time, she's 26 now, we moved back to Pittsburgh because I felt that she needed to be around her grandfathers and grandma and cousins and all that stuff.
And you can't get good pierogies in Davenport, Iowa.
No, you can't. As hard as you can try,
Yeah.
you can't do that.
And what is it? Perani Brothers? I'm saying their name wrong.
Primanti Brothers, yeah.
Permani Brothers, with the French fries on the burger.
Yeah, because we care about our health so much in Pittsburgh.
So you get back to Pittsburgh, and then you end up eventually specializing. I mean, were you general chiropractic care, and then found a different niche?
When I started my practice in 2001, I hung a shingle, and I was treating people for problems that you typically would associate going to a chiropractor for, like car accident injuries and sports injuries and headaches and back pain and neck pain and stuff, musculoskeletal things.
Yeah.
And along the way, people would come in to see me when they would have some kind of a weird, mysterious problem that I could not figure out what was wrong with them, and I couldn't figure out what to do about it. And these were people that had things like they had high blood pressure or thyroid problems or autoimmunity problems. And so I started to explore what could I do to help them in the best way that I could in my license. And so I started to take classes and read books and get educated in terms of nutrition. Right now, I'm a diplomate from the Board of Clinical Nutritionists. And then I continued down that rabbit hole and started to study functional blood chemistry analysis and stool analysis and urinalysis and all these different things, all these different markers that led me to functional medicine. And then it's a personalized, patient-centered approach to healthcare. Now, there's two broad classifications of healthcare in this country. There is allopathic healthcare, which is what most MDs practice, and there's functional healthcare. Now, the difference is that MDs are looking to chase symptoms, and they're usually in the form of a drug or a chemical. So if you have high blood pressure, they're going to give you a blood pressure medication. If you have low thyroid, they're going to give you a hormone replacement therapy. And if you have circulatory disorders, they're going to give you a drug for that too. Whereas functional medicine is different. Functional medicine asks the question, why? Why does this person have high blood pressure? Why do they have low thyroid disease? Medical doctors never ask that question. You typically get about 7 minutes of face-to-face time with the doctor. He's going to throw a one-size-fits-all pill at you, and you're out the door before you even know it hit you. And I think that's a kind of a crummy way to practice. For some people, a very small percentage, they seem to be perfectly happy with that. But most of the people that I've talked to, they're just not really happy with the one-size-fits-all approach to modern medicine. It doesn't matter what you have, you're going to get the same pills that everybody else does.
Yeah.
You're going to get a statin drug to lower your cholesterol. You're going to get a drug to help you to sleep better. You're going to get a pill to regulate your blood pressure, all that kind of stuff. And that's not really healthcare. That's really like disease care. It's really like managing ailments with a pill, as opposed to figuring out why do you have this problem.
How often do you encounter? And I think when we were talking on the phone a few weeks ago, I said I think I warned you that I'm like an Irish setter in the backyard, and a squirrel comes and I go after it, and
a little ADD, huh?
Yeah, and I take a lot of notes as like when I'm talking with guests, and I'm not being rude. I'm looking down and writing notes, and one of the things that struck me, which then also led to me thinking of a question, was in my own experience, I I don't go to a doctor. I'm fortunate. I'm blessed. I'm not on any meds. You know, I'm 68, almost 69 years old, and I take a vitamin and a probiotic, and I make my own kimchi. You know, because that's healthy, good, or it's good for me, I guess.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and I go once a year and get a wellness checkup. And now that what you just said, I'm like, you know what? I don't think in the last 10 years I've actually even seen a doctor. I've gotten a PA.
Right.
Yeah, and not even actually having faced, you know, I get less than 7 minutes of time with a doctor than most, I guess. So that struck me at the because you and me in our age bracket, nobody ever heard of a PA. You know, it was
Well,
the family doctor.
it's all about economics.
Yeah.
The PA, the physician's assistant, or a nurse practitioner, they are cheaper to employ in the setting. The medical doctors nowadays in today's market, they take on a supervisory position.
Mm-hmm.
So the physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner cannot practice independently on their own. They have to have what's called a collaborative agreement
Yeah.
where they have an oversight doctor that needs to review like 10% of all their notes and to keep everything on the up and up. It doesn't mean that they're less than. It just means
Right.
that's the trend that we're seeing these days.
Well, and to become a PA is not as you don't go into as much debt, I don't think, as you
Yeah.
would go into a full blown, you know, medical degree. So but here's my question, and for all the listeners out there, you know, raise your hand because I'm not going to be able to see you. How often do you encounter people whose first words out of their mouth when they make they show up for their appointment and they go, well, I looked on WebMD, I Googled my symptoms, and they tried to tell you what is wrong with them because that's what the computer told them. How often do you encounter that?
It happens so much that I actually got as a gift a mug that says, "Please don't confuse your Google search with my medical degree." You know, so everybody consults Doctor Google,
Yeah.
and if Doctor Google that pulls information from everywhere on the internet is getting the information from a bad source, you're going to end up with bad information. So typically they pull information from WebMD or from uh, Johns Hopkins or from the any of the other major medical centers in the United States. But ultimately, all these places practice the exact same thing,
Yeah.
do the same exact stuff. So, for example, I help people with neuropathy. Neuropathy is means damage or disease that affects the nerves that branch off of the spine. So those would be the nerves that go down your legs or down your arms
Mm-hmm.
or wrap around your trunk. So we've all seen people with this problem. Maybe they have balance issues
Mm-hmm.
and they have to hold on to a cane or a walker just to maintain themselves upright.
Yeah.
And the only thing that the medical doctors know what to do with them is to give them one of four drugs: gabapentin, Neurontin, which is exactly the same drug as gabapentin. One of them is a generic, one of them is a brand name. That's
Yeah.
why they're called different stuff. And the third drug is Lyrica that you've all seen TV ads for.
Yeah.
And the fourth one would be Cymbalta, which is an antidepressant. None of those drugs were ever FDA approved for the treatment of neuropathy. Um, Gabapentin, Neurontin, and Lyrica are all identical kind of drugs. They're all made by Pfizer. They were formulated and researched for the treatment of epilepsy.
Really.
So they're giving people an anti-seizure drug. What that does is it slows down your brain waves so you can't feel your feet, so it numbs you up. It's not going to do anything for balance problems or numbness or tingling, muscle cramping, muscle weakness, cold extremities, stuff like that. But if your feet feel like they're on fire and you have diabetic neuropathy, maybe it can give you a little bit of temporary relief. But guess what happens the second that you stop taking your pills?
The pain comes back.
Absolutely comes roaring back. And
Yeah.
this is a progressive degenerative problem. What that means is that in time the symptoms get worse. And so the doctors have to constantly increase the dosage of the drugs to keep up with the demand.
Hmm.
So it's very common for people to start off by taking a 100 milligram tablet once a day, and then twice a day, and then 3 times a day. And then they bump it up to 200 milligrams, and then 300 milligrams. The most that I've seen, a guy walk in my office, he was taking 2,700 milligrams of Neurontin a day, and wasn't helping him. It was just masking the symptoms, like I said, on a temporary basis, as the underlying root cause of the problem continued to burn. It's like cutting the alarm bell to the smoke alarm because you're annoyed by that
Yeah.
ringing sound.
Yeah.
While the fire inside the wall continues to burn,
Yeah.
it doesn't put the fire out. It just you can't you're not aware of it anymore.
Yeah. And taking that's kind of, and I think I shared this story with you when we were talking on the phone. Taking that quantity of a prescription medication, or even over the counter, mine was Tylenol, can't be good for other organs in your body. So you end up creating additional health problems by taking that quantity of anything.
Yeah.
I was taking 3,000 milligrams of Tylenol a day. Yeah, I think I shared with you on the phone that I had a traumatic brain injury in second grade, and now was in my adult years after I graduated from law school, and we're married and have kids, and I started getting these headaches in the back left quadrant of the skull, and Tylenol would, like you said, though, it was like it took 1,000 milligrams a day, and it was working, but it eventually got up to 3,000 milligrams a day, and I go to the doctor at the county, because I was a county prosecutor, so I had to go to the county clinic, and he's like, just watch your posture a little bit better, when you're sitting at a desk. And I said, well, what about taking all this Tylenol? He goes, does it work? I go, yeah. He goes, then keep taking it. And I'm like, okay. My wife's like, I get home and tell her, and she's like, well, that can't be right. And we're at church that next Sunday, and a friend of ours from church was a Palmer chiropractic doctor, graduated, and was there long before I think you were there. But he goes, I was telling him about it. Actually, I was bitching and complaining about it, and he goes, come down and see me. So I go down and see him, and I did not tell him about the TBI. I just was telling him that I had to, because I didn't connect the TBI to what was going on.
Yeah.
And obviously neither did the doctor I went to. And so first thing he does is take x-rays. And it comes back into the exam room, and I'm sitting on the not a gurney, but whatever
The table.
yeah, the table, that's the word.
Yeah.
And I have I have t-shirt on. I'd taken my dress shirt off, and I'm sitting there, and he goes, I bet it hurts right here. And he presses in about the middle of my back on the spine. And I had no back pain or anything. I just had these headaches. I mean, it about launched me off the table.
Yeah.
And then he goes, that's where your spine is trying to correct what's going on with your head. And then he asked me this, when did you have a head injury? I said, second grade. He goes, oh, okay, well, that explains your extra.
And you never told him that you
I did. I had not told him that.
Yeah.
I just told him I'm having headaches.
Yeah.
And this guy and the doctor blames it on poor posture, sitting at a desk working on a computer all day long. And so I told him about the TBI, and he goes, well, that explains everything. Your skull doesn't sit on the axis properly of the spine, and it's putting compression. And he goes, it'll probably take about 6 weeks of some manipulation, and we'll get this corrected for you. And it did. I mean, it worked. No more meds, nothing. And then he also goes, hey, and here's some exercises you can do if they start coming back. Here's what you need to do to get your head straightened out, so to speak, on your spine. And that was almost 40 years ago.
Your liver thanks you for not taking so much Tylenol anymore.
Yeah, really. Because then when I was a cop, and I never knew this about the liver and Tylenol, acetaminophen, I get a call on a attempt suicide, and the guy had swallowed a whole bottle of Tylenol and then drank like a fifth of whiskey, and so the medic gets him to the hospital. I got to go do follow up because I may have to do a thing to have him committed for 3 days for mental health evaluation. And I said to the doc, man, he's lucky that somebody called for a medic and they got him here. They pumped the stomach. Well, they don't pump it, the charcoal and all that crap. Because man, that's not going to be good. And the doctor looks at me and he goes, well, he's going to die anyway. And I go, what? What do you mean? He goes, that much alcohol and that much Tylenol, we can't get it all in the pumping his stomach kind of deal. He goes, that's all going to crystallize in his liver, and his liver's going to he's going to have liver problems in 3 to 5 years probably because of the lapse of time of getting him to the hospital. And then he told me, he goes, you need to tell those young cops, that when they go out and they're drinking, going on a binge, and they come home and they don't want to wake up with a hangover the next morning, so they pop a couple Tylenol. It's the worst thing you can do because it's going to crystallize in your liver, and your liver can't get rid of it. So it's like, wow. Well,
it's over the counter, so people make the mistake of thinking it's perfectly harmless. It's perfectly fine if you're not taking prescription strength medications. If it's just like ibuprofen or Tylenol, it's perfectly fine, but it's really not. And from time to time, it's okay to take that, but not like I have people that say they were taking 4 Tylenol a day for like 5 years. I'm like, have you talked to your primary care doctor about this? I go, oh yeah, absolutely. They're fine with it. I'm like, wow, that's poor you. I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
But,
well, then I also learned. So I'm like, oh well, instead of taking Tylenol, I'll just take ibuprofen. And the doctor goes, no, that's going to ruin your kidneys.
Yeah. So no matter which way you turn, it's a bad choice.
Yeah. And then he goes, quit drinking so much. Then you won't need anything. And I'm like, yeah, you got a good point there. But telling young kids, the 20-somethings, that's a tough road to hoe.
It is a difficult battle, is trying to educate people that don't want to listen. And I don't know if you ever heard that phrase that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah. That's
absolutely true. When you're ready to hear a message, you'll hear it loud and clear. But until that point, good luck.
Yeah. So, a lot of people call that aha moments. It's when you have that epiphany, and then so many things then start making sense. Just in the arena of communication, because you're an active listener and you ask a lot of questions to get people to share with you, what's going on in their lives that could be triggering some of their health issues that no medicine in the world is going to, or prescription's going to take care of, and that makes you a good communicator. How do you deal with people? Because basically, I think it's statistically 50% of the population are introverts, and the other 50% are not. They're extroverts, whatever all that means. How do you get people to open up to you to talk about those personal kind of everybody lies to their doctor. How many alcoholic beverages do you consume a week? Just a couple. And they're not being honest with you. And
Oh yeah.
Or
what I'm waiting for is how many alcoholic beverages do you consume per week? Why do you have some?
yeah. Or I used to you'd make a traffic stop on it's a suspected DUI, and you get them out of the car and you say, have you had any alcohol tonight? Oh yeah, I only had 2 beers. I go, 2 40 ounces? Because people don't like to share things that they know they shouldn't be doing. So how do you do that in the medical field? How do you get people to be honest with you about their personal life that may be the cause of their problem and it's not genetic?
Well, there's a lot to unpack right there. The first thing is getting people to open up through just general rapport building, finding some commonalities with them and getting them to talk about that stuff, and then transition very slowly into so why are you here today and what's going on? And kind of present me as I'm not here to judge you, I'm here to help.
Yeah.
So what can I do to make you have a brighter tomorrow? What's going on? And then ask specific pointed questions about their problem, and then find out really what their hot button issue is. The hot button issue would take precedence if you could solve one problem. Because let me tell you something, patients reserve the right to have more than one problem. So very, very frequently, we have people that have multiple problems. They could have back pain and neuropathy and spinal stenosis, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol. They could have arthritis and autoimmune disease and all kinds of stuff. And then I'll just say, between all that, what is the number one most important thing that we can correct? If we just have to whittle it down to the one topic that takes precedence over everything else,
Mm-hmm.
and let them decide what it is. Not just assume that just ask them what the number one problem is.
Yeah.
And then say, when I get to the exam, we're going to look at everything. We're going to look at all these different problems that you talked about, but just for now, just for the purposes of this consultation, how about if we just talk about that one issue? Would that be okay? And
Yeah.
say, yeah, absolutely. And then all of a sudden, now you're the guy that really listens. You're not the guy that interrupts them, and you're here to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And then from there, I want to find out, how long has this been going on in their life? What were you doing when you first started to notice this? Was there any other issues going on at the same time? And what did you do for it? And kind of build. It's like a prosecutor. You're building a case.
Yeah.
Figuring out what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. This is going to sound really weird. It reminds me of the concepts, and Chris Voss, in one of his books,
Never Split the Difference.
yeah, Never Split the Difference.
I have that book.
Yeah, and I've been trying to get him, find somebody that would get to him to allow me to have him on the show.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, he is. Well, and then a guy named Robin Dreek, and Robin was they were both FBI guys, and back in the day, and Voss was a hostage negotiator, and Robin was a counterterrorism guy, and I've read several of both of their books, and Robin's actually been on the podcast. Oh. And but the one thing, the aha moment is like, I knew what they were saying, but I didn't know how to articulate it or to name it during my career. But when you have that epiphany that we all want four things in life, and you as a doctor with the patient, here's the four things that they want in their life. They want safety, security, prosperity, and control. Those four things, every one of us, human being, those are our four, almost basic desires, want, and needs, is that safety, security, prosperity, and control. And how you can help someone is that active listening, like Voss talks about, is, shut up and listen and ask good questions, and then you can start sorting out which one of those four areas is this person's biggest struggle right now, in order to get them to do what you want them to do. Whether it was in hostage negotiator, you want that, the hostage taker, even if they're only holding themselves hostage, or for Robin, it's to flip a and I said counterterrorism. It was counterintelligence, not terrorism. And he worked almost exclusively in the Cold War Russia arena. Is how do I get a Russian asset who I know is a spy, and they're here in the United States. I know they are here and they're spying on the U.S. How can I flip that guy to now spy on his own country? And the concept was those four areas, and then develop that trust and rapport so that they will do or say things against their best interest, and you can then solve a problem you have, so to speak, for those guys. So I don't know. Do doctors get taught that kind of communication skill sets in medical school or whatever, or you just
clearly not?
Yeah,
they're taught. The doctors, when they're in training, when I finished school, I came home and I could speak fluent medicalese. And my mother said to me, I have no idea what you're talking about. Why don't you talk like a normal person?
Yeah.
So, when I was still in the music industry, I used to teach guitar. And if you could teach guitar to a 6-year-old, you could definitely articulate more advanced concepts like neurology or metabolic problems to an adult. And so it's funny how some of those things can lend themselves to other areas later in life.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I'll do, if I could go back to healthcare, is I help people with chronic health problems, and specifically with low thyroid disease. And the way that I do that is I take a bunch of different lab tests, way more than is you typically see with a medical doctor.
Mm-hmm.
With the medical doctor, this is mostly controlled by the insurance companies. And the frustrating part about that is by the time you even walk in the man's office, your treatment plan has already been predetermined, usually by an actuary that works for the insurance company, that works in a cubicle in another city, has never met you, has never looked at your labs, has never done an exam on you, has never looked at any x rays or MRIs, but that person is making critical decision makings for you about what you need, about what you're going to get. So the doctor's offices these days, especially like primary care physician, more so than in specialties, they they look at your insurances and they know exactly what your insurance will pay for and what they won't pay for. So what they're going to do is they're going to order just enough labs in order to arrive at a diagnosis in order to justify prescribing a drug. And that's all. That's all
Wow.
they're going to do. So and it's really frustrating for the medical doctors because they practice with one hand tied behind their backs. They're very constrained by the insurance industry, and they all complain about it all the time. I could use more colorful language, but I'm being polite. Um, but they complain about it very often and very loudly behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And the people are so used to just getting like a veneer glossy overview of really what their problem's all about. Nobody will go over their x-rays with them. Nobody will go over their lab tests with them, and they're left stuck and bewildered, like what's going on here. All the doctor goes is, here, I want you to use this prescription, and I'll see you in a year from now.
Here's the squirrel. And this is what I pictured immediately. The analogy of what you're sharing about the medical field would be like your car's leaking oil,
Yeah.
and you take it to a mechanic, and the mechanic goes, well, go have a seat in the waiting room, and you can't see what they're doing or anything like that, and then they come back out and they tell you, well, we're not sure. It might be this, that, or the other thing. And the best thing I can tell you is, every day check your dipstick in your oil, and if you've lost too much, put some more oil in it. And
Yeah.
you're putting like you say, a Band-Aid on an injury kind of deal.
Yeah.
That the medical world and lawyer. Yeah, I had this conversation 2 days ago with another lawyer. We went to law school together, and we both practiced back in Ohio. We both now live in Colorado. And he was talking to a mutual friend that we had that was also a lawyer. And he said literally in Dayton, Ohio, Montgomery County, Dayton, Ohio, nobody is litigating cases anymore. Not even the prosecutor. Everything is negotiated settlements and splitting the difference. Even in criminal trials, because nobody knows how to litigate anymore. They don't know how to talk to juries. If they even had a jury trial, they wouldn't know how to do one. And everybody blames it on COVID. That's when that cycle started of plea bargaining everything out in the criminal justice system, but then even in the personal injury arena, civil law is because we can't have jurors sitting 6 feet apart from one another. So judges were ordering parties, y'all work it out, otherwise I'm dismissing the case.
Yeah.
And it sounds like medicine has kind of gone the same way.
Getting back to your automotive analogy, it's kind of like if you go in there with your engine smoking, and the doctor is going to do a 5-minute exam on the engine and say, well, let's just change your oil, and then he's going to charge you $4,000 for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then you're going to come back in 2 months and say, my engine seized. He goes, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'll give you a new one for 12,000.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're none of them are like digging below the surface and figuring out maybe because of that really severe oil leak, that's the problem. And maybe we need to dig out some parts and fix what's broken.
Yeah.
So the medical doctors don't do that. That's where functional medicine comes in. Functional medicine doctors will often spend the time and talk to a person for 2 hours to find out, what are you eating, how are you sleeping, how are you exercising, how are you managing your stress,
Hmm.
what are all the different contributing factors that could go into what's going on right now, rather than just be interested in covering up your symptoms with a drug.
Yeah.
It's a more meaningful way to practice healthcare. It's a more it requires patience, and it requires prudence, but ultimately you'll find out that you're happier in the long run.
Yeah. Well, and not only patience and prudence, but also a commitment to a higher standard of taking care of people. I mean,
Oh,
it'd be.
yeah.
I kind of, again, the analogy, and these are goofy things. I don't know why my brain works this way sometimes, but you kind of hear a similar type standoffishness in second marriages, and that the a couple, maybe there's a child from a previous marriage, and then your mom remarries some other guy, and they have kids together, and you're like the pariah. You're the outsider. You're not really one of us, kind of brother and sister thing, because you have a different dad. And I don't know why I'm making that analogy, but I see, or I hear from your stories and other people, is that we have lost that sense of genuine compassion and empathy and servant mindset in a lot of professional fields.
Well, I mean, being a chiropractor, we're the redheaded stepchildren of the healthcare profession,
Yeah.
and so I totally understand your story. Um, when it comes to functional medicine and dealing with thyroid issues, there's a lot of reasons why people have no energy, why people gain weight.
Mm.
They can't lose weight even with diet and exercise, or they have insomnia, either problems falling asleep or problems staying asleep, um, problems with infertility. If a woman is trying to make a new family and she can't conceive, boy, that can be so frustrating for
Mm.
everybody involved. And they can spend thousands and thousands of dollars at the fertility clinics, but you can trace a lot of this back to hypothyroidism and figuring out what's the common theme here. Why do people have their hair falling out in clumps in the sink, or the loss of the outer one third of the eyebrows, or weak or cracked fingernails, or skin problems?
Hmm.
All of that can be traced back to thyroid problems. And there's a lot of different, what I call triggers, that can cause thyroid dysfunction, one of them being an autoimmune condition. Other ones could include anemia, blood sugar problems, either insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, cortisol problems, sex hormone issues that would involve testosterone problems, estrogen problems, progesterone problems. Remember, boys and girls make both, and they
Yeah.
have to be in the right amount for your gender and for your age. Chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, GI problems, food allergies, chemical sensitivities, and unresolved viral infections. All of that stuff could throw off your thyroid function. Guess how many of those things your medical doctor even considers.
None.
None. They don't. They just say, "Here, take this Synthroid. Get out of my office. I'll see you in 6 months."
Yeah.
And so, it works in about 17% of all cases. The other 83% of people don't get any results whatsoever, and they are so angry and so frustrated because it seems like nobody's listening to them, and nobody can help them.
Which kind of then begs the question: then what can be done? Uh, you recognize these things, and other functional medicine practitioners recognize these things. How does the general public or an individual voice that in a way that's going to make a difference and bring about changes? That's the $1 billion question.
Well, the quick and dirty answer to that is they can't. We live in a drug society, and as long as that's the case, as long as you want to continue to use insurance driven programs or drugs to mask these symptoms, it's never going to get corrected. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves, do some real lab testing. Like when I order labs, um, my foundational labs are about 65 different markers, and it's a lot of information. But that's what's required just to get a base of understanding about what's going on behind the scenes. And then from there, I can order tests involving hormones. We can order tests involving cortisol issues, stool tests to check the ecology of your gastrointestinal system and see what's going on with absorption, inflammation, bowel transit times. If you have constipation or diarrhea, if there's a problem with certain chemicals, we can run a toxic panel, figure out what's behind, what's going on, what could be contributing to this problem that we're dealing with. And once you have all this information, then you can start to piece together the jigsaw puzzle that's going on. But
So
it all starts off by taking a look at the individual problems and what you've already tried to fix in the first place.
so is there or are there medical schools that what you just described of practicing medicine, this is what you need to do, that the 65 panel labs and all that kind of stuff. Are there any actual medical schools that are functional medicine oriented and not just churning out what we now would call the traditional medical practitioner?
No,
Really?
no. There are medical doctors that have seen the light and are starting to practice functional medicine. There's one guy in Massachusetts, Mark Hyman, who's been a regular guest on Oprah. In fact, he was the one that figured out that she had Hashimoto's disease,
Really?
and she put him on the map as a result. But he's a medical doctor, but he gave up practicing traditional allopathic healthcare and in turn focusing on functional treatments. But it takes they're about 50 years behind. The names have changed, and the names of the drugs have changed, and the procedures, but it's still the same thing that they did back in 1965, and nothing's changed with that. As far as
Wow.
like diagnosing thyroid disorders, medical doctors will order one test. They'll order a TSH. I mean, that stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. When I look at your thyroid, I'm going to do 10 different tests because I want to see the entire metabolic pathway and where the breakdowns could be occurring. And then figuring out where the breakdowns are, fix them at their source, as opposed to just, you know, giving you an extra T4.
Wow. I just had my wellness checkup done and got my test, the test results, and there's a gazillion things, and the TSH or T whatever you said it was, and everything is a range, and it's like that's all the doctor's looking at is if you fall within this range, then you don't have a problem. Or
So there's a problem that I have with that. So let's say that you deal with LabCorp or Quest Diagnostics, one of the two. They're going to have what's called a reference interval. And the reference interval is going to be a range of scores. There's going to be a low and a high.
right,
And as long as your number appears between the low and the high score, you're deemed to be okay. And the medical doctor is going to go by whatever that reference interval could be. The reference interval is a very wide, very forgiving range. I'll look at that, and I will also take into consideration the functional range. The functional range is a tighter, less forgiving range that I can catch things a lot earlier than they can by using their big forgiving ranges. So the functional range is the sweet spot. It's where you should be. If you ever play golf, there's a sweet spot on the golf club where if the ball meets contact with the sweet spot, it's going to take off. Whereas if you hit it on the toe or the heel of the club, it's not going to give you as great of a response. The exact same thing happens with lab testing. So they're ordering an insufficient amount of tests, and the tests that they're doing, they're not applying the right standards to what's going on.
So how can we educate people to stand up for themselves? Because it's not going to change voluntarily. What are things people can do to go? They get that. Their test results back, and there is. I mean, your lipids and all that kind of stuff. None of which you understand, or for guys, you get your PSA back, and again, it has that range. If you're like between 0 and 10, you have 50% chance of you have cancer, or 11 to 15 is 28%, and then you're thinking, oh my God, I get 28% chance I got cancer, and the doctor calls and goes, hey, everything's all right. We'll keep an eye on that, and next year we'll see if there's a change.
Well, just like that doctor that said to you, it's perfectly fine to take 3,000 milligrams of Tylenol every single day. I would say there's a couple things that people can do. First of all, share your podcast with everybody you know, because people need to hear this information.
Yeah.
And here's a shameless plug. I have a book coming out called Why Am I Still Sick? And it explains what's going on, what's the relationship that's going on between how you feel in your lab tests and all the deficiencies in modern medicine, and why they don't do such a great job all the time. Like there's certain problems out there that I can't help you with. Like I can't fix lung cancer.
Yeah.
But when it comes to chronic issues, like especially low thyroid problems, it's night and day differences between what I do versus what a medical doctor does. And the stuff is they're just practicing generic one size fits all medicine.
Yeah. So when's your book coming out?
It's at the publisher. It's up to them. It's in heavy editing. I wanted it to be released a couple of months ago, but we kept finding this and that and the other. And better to correct it now while you can than later on.
So do you have a website, or how do people reach out to you?
Well, probably the best way to get a hold of me and to learn a little bit more about what I do and to ask a question is to visit my website at metabolicsolutions.net. And at metabolicsolutions.net, I have a lot of resources there. One of them is a free metabolic health assessment that people can do just by clicking on a link. It's completely free. It only takes about 2 minutes, and it will categorize you as either having a mild problem, a moderate issue, or a severe issue. And if you want to ask me a question, I have a contact page on the website that you can email me your questions, and we can strike up a conversation that way. I'm very good with email, and I will get back to you.
Okay,
But
so
just
but not AI, no bot sending you ask the question and a bot generates the answer. They're
no,
actually
no,
going to.
you're going to get a real live boring human being.
You're not boring. I haven't laughed this much in a way on a podcast for a while. It's just so interesting to learn these perspectives, and most of us, unless you have a really someone close to you that is in the medical practice, and we do. We have a friend. I went to high school with her back in the 70s, and she eventually had to give up practicing. And she was my wife's physician when my wife was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and she ended up having to give up her practice because she was. I don't think they were using the word functional, but she was taking the time and effort that you're talking about, and then losing money because Medicare or Medicaid is only going to pay this much, and you can't run an office on that. And she ended up leaving the practice of general medicine, and moved to another state and took up specifically, basically, end of life care for people in in nursing homes, kind of deal. But if you don't know somebody that has that real life experience and doesn't sugarcoat or have excuses or make up, blame somebody else, blame your politicians or blame this or blame that. Most people have no clue what is going. The Wizard of Oz. They don't know what's going on behind the curtain.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
medicine is a big business, billions and billions of dollars, and the people that are in the driver's seat are the insurance industry, the insurance companies, and it's an unfortunate reality that we have to deal with. The stuff that I do is not expensive. Nobody has ever gone to bankruptcy court because of going to a functional medicine practitioner. When you go see a medical doctor, you have to go into the hospital, into the ICU. Now you're talking big bucks. You're talking like $250,000 bill after a week in the ICU. It's very, very common. The stuff that I do is nowhere near that. But for people that have already gone to the medical doctor and you've already tried the drugs and you're still not happy with where you're at, maybe it's time to try something different.
Yeah. And that takes, from the patient's point of view, that takes discipline, that takes commitment, that takes all the things that you're talking about on your side in order to drill down to get to what the real, triggering things might be.
Right.
That patient needs to have that same mindset and community resources and support to help them. Again, squirrel just went flying by. It's like nobody independently goes to AA and goes to one meeting and goes, okay, I can do this all by myself.
Right.
Yeah, you need that support mechanism. You need people that can, because we all do fail at times. We all cut corners. We all do the path of least resistance at times in our lives, so that people need to understand that if you really want to change your physical health, guess what? You're in the driver's seat, and and you got to have that commitment and resolve to not quit. So on the on your metabolicsolutions.net, is there a mechanism on there that people can jump on and go to check and see, hey, when's that? Is the book going to be on that website? Or how can I want people to be able to sit down and take the time when your book is out to read it and digest it and learn from it, and not just go, oh, it's just another medical book. So
when it's available, I intended to put it out on an ebook format.
Okay.
So I can send people a digital copy, and then you can leaf through that at your leisure and figure out what's going on and what would be the best solution for you based on where you're at.
Okay.
But once it's available, I'll put it up on the website and I'll give people access to it.
Awesome. Doc, this has been a great discussion. And I mean this very genuinely. When that book does come out, reach out to me and let's get you back on, and we can just talk about the book and any new developments or insights and stuff that you've learned, because there's so many, it's like almost every day. Just yesterday I saw where the FDA has approved a new blood testing protocol for that is not light. Maybe it is light years ahead of, but certainly a less invasive. Actually, it wasn't yesterday. It was this morning for I can't say it. Colorectal cancer. Mm-hmm. That the FDA has approved a blood test. Now, I don't know the efficacy and all those things, medical things that go along with that, but at least there's being research done out there to try and help identify certain kinds of diseases much earlier than we have been able to do, up until this time. So we got to get you back on when the book comes out. Absolutely.
I would be happy to come back.
Yeah. And so, man, thank you for such a informative, interesting conversation. For our audience, our listeners out there, man, I want to thank you for being loyal listeners. Because of you, we're now downloaded in 75 countries and Hong Kong. And it's all because of your desire and commitment to want to learn more about how you can be a warrior, servant, and leader in your own personal and professional lives. So keep listening, downloading, liking, commenting, sharing our episodes with people that need to hear today's message, especially today's message. I mean, if there's going to be one that you need to blast out there to your friends and family, it's this episode. So be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Substack, all that kind of stuff, at Pat Welsh JD. Subscribe for free if you're on LinkedIn. Subscribe for free to our Warrior Servant Leader newsletter. Until next week, I love you all. And remember, I end every episode with the same admonition, advice, plea, whatever you want to call it. Always, always, always strive to do the right thing at the right time, the right way, and for the right reasons, because that's what warrior servants and leaders do every day, every time. See you next week.